Welcome to Heart Healthy Shopping and Label Reading, Part 2 of the Nutrition Presentation Series for the Cardiac Rehab Program. In this presentation, we will cover the basics of the nutrition facts label, the 5 nutrients for heart health that we want to focus on, those being saturated fat, trans fats, sodium, fiber, and sugar. And then towards the end, we'll do a little label reading grocery store tour virtually. This is an image of the standard nutrition facts table in Canada. The majority of food products that you see at the grocery store will contain this label. The nutrition facts table can be used in a few ways. First, you can read the table to learn the nutrition information of the product that you're eating. Similarly, you can look at 2 labels of 2 different products to make the better choice. You can also increase or decrease your intake of nutrients that influence your heart disease risk once you learn how to read the label properly. And then finally, overall, knowing how to read the nutrition facts table will help you to choose heart-healthy foods. Although the nutrition facts table can be found on the majority of food products, there are a few exceptions to this rule. You will not find a nutrition facts table on fresh fruits and vegetables in the produce department. However, that being said, if vegetables and fruits are canned, they will contain a nutrition facts table for the most part. Raw fish and seafood in the fish department of your grocery store also will not contain a nutrition facts table. But again, if it's a frozen fish product like fish cakes, then it will contain a nutrition facts table. Raw meat and poultry in the meat department will also not contain a nutrition facts table. There are some exceptions to this, such as when it is ground or if it is a frozen packaged product such as chicken fingers or hamburger patties. Foods prepared or processed at the store, such as in the bakery department, the hot food deli, the cold food deli, the sushi counter, and more, will not contain the nutrition facts table. Foods that contain very little nutritive value, such as coffee, tea, herbs, and spices, are also exempt. Alcoholic beverages, both sold at the grocery store, LCBO, and the beer store, are not required to contain the nutrition facts table. Finally, most foods served at restaurants will not share their nutrition information. However, if the restaurant company has more than 20 establishments, they are required to share their calorie count of their food. However, this does not mean that a full nutrition facts table will be found for every item on a menu. At times, it may just be the caloric amount. When interpreting the nutrition facts table, the first thing to look at is the serving size, listed at the very top of the table underneath the title. The serving size can be given in different measurements, such as grams, cups, milliliters, or ounces. All of the nutrition information that you see on the table is based on this serving size amount. If you eat more than the suggested serving size, then you have to do some quick math to determine how much of the nutrients you are receiving. So for example, if you have 1 slice of cheese on this table, you would be receiving 95 calories, 6 grams of fat, 15 milligrams of cholesterol, and so on. But if you had 2 slices of cheese, then you need to double everything in order to figure out what is actually going into your body. The percentages on the far right of the table are also a very important concept to understand. This percentage is called the percent daily value, and it reflects how much of a nutrient you need, or in some cases, how much of a nutrient you shouldn't exceed in one day based on a 2,000 calorie diet. The diagram on the left shows an easy way to interpret the percent daily value. If a nutrient has 5%, then it is considered a little. If a nutrient says that it has 15% of your daily value, then it is considered a lot of that nutrient. Between 5 and 15% daily value would be considered a moderate amount of that nutrient. When using the 5 and 15% daily value rule, in some cases, the less the better, and in others, the more the better. So when we look at nutrients such as saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and added sugar, ideally we want to hit about 5% or less daily value for those nutrients. On the flip side, for nutrients like fiber, we want more. So we are striving to hit that 15% or greater daily value. This product contains 3% daily value of saturated fats and 4% daily value of sodium, which is both considered a little. It also contains 16% fiber, which is considered a lot. So overall, this would be a great product to choose. The first nutrient that we will dive into for heart health is saturated fat. A high saturated fat intake can increase LDL, lousy cholesterol in the body. LDL cholesterol was discussed in greater detail in the previous nutrition presentation. Examples of foods with saturated fat include high-fat dairy products such as milk, yogurt, and ice cream, egg yolk, butter or lard, meat, especially red meat, dark poultry meat, and poultry skin. When reading a nutrition facts table for saturated fat, the magic number that we want to stick to is 2 grams or less of saturated fat per serving. You can also use the 5 and 15% daily value rule when looking at saturated fat. Overall, we want to limit our intake of total saturated fat throughout the day to between 20 and 30 grams. Next up is trans fats. Trans fats can increase LDL lousy cholesterol as well as decrease HDL healthy cholesterol. Examples of foods with trans fats include partially hydrogenated vegetable oils, margarines, and shortening, deep fried and fast foods, packaged convenient foods, baked products, and more. Overall, we want to aim for 0 grams of trans fats per serving per day. Interestingly, trans fats are actually in the process of being banned by Health Canada in packaged food products. Next is total fat. If you remember correctly from the previous nutrition presentation, there are 3 different types of fat. Remember that our goal with fat is to replace saturated and trans fats with the healthier unsaturated fats. For this reason, when looking at the total fat content, it is also important to consider where the fat is coming from. Is it mostly from saturated and trans fats? Or is it mostly coming from unsaturated fat sources? Unfortunately, unsaturated fats do not have their own row on the nutrition facts table. So, when interpreting the fat content of a product, you must deduct the saturated and trans fats from the total fat to see how much of the fat is actually unsaturated, healthy fats. That being said, if you are also watching your weight in addition to trying to eat heart healthy, then it is important to eat moderate portions of all fats because they are high in calories. This does not mean that we want to restrict unsaturated fats. It just means that it is something to consider when it comes to caloric intake and weight loss. The next nutrient that we will focus on is sodium or salt. As we know from the previous nutrition presentation, high salt intake can be associated with high blood pressure as well as a greater risk of developing heart disease. The average Canadian consumes about 3,400 milligrams of salt per day. However, the recommendation by Health Canada is to have no more than 2,300 milligrams per day, which is approximately 1 teaspoon. This is especially important if you are someone who is dealing with high blood pressure or has cardiovascular disease. It is important to note that sodium is, in fact, an essential mineral for our bodies. It plays an important role in fluid balance and is also crucial in nerve function. Sodium becomes a problem when we eat it in excess. Ideally, we want to stick to packages and foods that have 200 milligrams or less of sodium per serving, and again, less than 2,300 milligrams of sodium overall per day. This table uses the example of tomato and tomato products to show the effect of food processing on sodium. In one fresh, raw, medium-sized tomato, there's about 14 milligrams of sodium. The sodium found naturally in vegetables is not something that we need to consider or worry about when counting our overall sodium intake. However, as you can see as you move down the table, the sodium content continues to increase as more food processing is being done to products. Then you end up at tomato soup that has about 800 to 900 milligrams of sodium per 1 cup. What a difference from just a tomato that's fresh and raw. This pie chart is a great example of how much sodium is actually being added just through food processing from the manufacturer. About 77% of hidden food sources of sodium is coming from the food processing stage. 12% from naturally occurring sodium, 6% added at the table with a salt shaker, and then about 5% that we add during the cooking process. We can control the amount of sodium that we are eating from processed food by reading the nutrition facts table. We can also control the amount of sodium that we're adding at the table with a salt shaker and how much we add during the cooking stage. Let's talk about fiber. As mentioned in the previous presentation, fiber plays an important role in blood sugar control, increasing our feeling of fullness, gut health, as well as lowering cholesterol in the body. When looking at the nutrition facts panel, we ideally want to choose foods that have 2 grams or more of fiber per serving. This is especially true when we are selecting grain products such as bread, pasta, and rice. Now let's talk sugars. There are 2 different types of sugar in the diet: added and naturally occurring. Added sugar is the type of sugar that is added to a food product during processing. This is the type of sugar that we need to watch out for when we are following a heart-healthy diet. Added sugars include white sugar, refined sugar, brown sugar, molasses, honey, syrup, corn syrup, sucrose, and others. Naturally occurring sugar, on the other hand, is sugar that is found in fruits and vegetables and some dairy products such as milk and yogurt. Naturally occurring sugar does not need to be avoided on a heart-healthy diet. This is because these foods also contain fiber, vitamins, and minerals which we want to include in our diets. More specifically, when we eat naturally occurring sugars that also contain fiber, the fiber acts to stabilize the sugar so that we don't have blood sugar spikes. It is important to note, however, though, if you do have diabetes, then it is important to take into consider both types of sugars because they will both affect your blood sugar, even though naturally occurring sugar will affect it a little bit less. On the nutrition facts panel, the amount of sugar that you see being displayed is representative of both naturally occurring and added sugars in the food product. Unfortunately, food labeling does not split up added sugars and naturally occurring sugars. In general, we want this number to be 5 grams or less of sugar per serving. However, if a food has naturally occurring sugar, so if it's milk, fruit, or unsweetened fruit products, then we know that this number may be higher, and that's okay. You can determine if a product has added sugar in it after you've read the nutrition facts panel by looking to the ingredients list. If sugar is listed as one of the first few ingredients on the list, this means that it is present in larger amounts. If it's at the end of the list, then it's likely in a small amount. Again, some types of sugars that you will see on the ingredients list include sugar, honey, molasses, syrup, glucose, fructose, dextrose, maltose, and sucrose. So look out for any of these types of sugars. Let's apply what I just mentioned. So with this product on the right, we can see that there's 12 grams of sugar in it. We then look to the ingredients list to see if there's any added sugars present. The ingredients list only has 2 ingredients, milk and vitamin D. This product is a carton of milk. We therefore know that all 12 grams of the sugar in this product are naturally occurring sugars, and we do not need to limit them. The current daily added sugar recommendations vary based on gender. For females, about 20 grams of added sugar per day, and for males, no more than 36 grams of added sugar per day. If you want to visualize what grams looks like, the conversion is 4 grams of added sugar to 1 teaspoon of sugar. So for women, 20 grams of added sugar would look like about 5 teaspoons, and for men, it would be about 9 teaspoons. How much added sugar do Canadians consume in a day? Based on current research, Canadians consume about 15 teaspoons or 60 grams of added sugar per day. This does not include sugar from naturally occurring sources. As you can see, this number is well over the recommended amount. Let's take a look at some added sugars to see how fast they can accumulate in our diet. 1 cup of Kellogg's Frosted Mini Wheats is about 3 teaspoons of sugar. A container of Fruit Bottom yogurt is about 4. 1 small Quaker granola bar is 2 teaspoons, and 1 large Tim Hortons Double Double is about 6 teaspoons. These 4 foods may all be consumed just at breakfast, so you can see how fast added sugars really do add up to that grand total of 15 teaspoons of added sugar just in the morning. Another example of added sugars are those found in carbonated beverages or soft drinks. As you can see here, this carbonated beverage has 39 grams of added sugar, which is about 10 teaspoons of sugar. We know that all of this sugar comes in the form of added sugars and not naturally occurring sugars. This table is a summary of target values of all 5 nutrients to consider when following a heart-healthy diet. Take a photo of this table or write down these values for the next time that you go to the grocery store. Now we will take a virtual tour of the grocery store to identify what foods to choose and to compare products. First stop is the produce department, where we'll find vegetables and fruits. These foods contain a high amount of vitamins, minerals, phytochemicals, and fiber, and their intake has been associated with a lower risk of heart disease. Some helpful tips are to fill the entire bottom of your grocery cart with vegetables and fruit, fill half of your plate with vegetables, and choose whole fruit instead of juice. A piece of whole fruit is going to be better than a glass of juice because of the fiber content. When we juice fruit, we lose majority of the fiber. Now let's head to the bakery department. In general, when we're choosing bread products, we want to choose those that are whole grains. This is because of the fiber content, vitamins, and minerals that whole grains have versus refined or white bread products. Things to choose less often include muffins, croissants, cookies, cakes, donuts, sweetbreads, cheese breads, and tea biscuits. Grains to choose more often include whole grain breads, whole grain tortillas, whole grain pitas and crackers, whole grain pasta, brown or wild rice, and whole grain English muffins. Let's compare 2 loaves of bread. The first thing to do is take a look at the serving size. In these 2 products, the serving size is virtually exactly the same for 1 slice of bread. Next, we'll take a look at the fat content. Again, the fat in these 2 products is very similar, both at 2% daily value. Then we'll take a look at the sodium. The sodium in these 2 products is exactly the same as well, both at 8% daily value. Next, we'll take a look at fiber. The product on the left-hand side is a white bread product, and it has only 1 gram of fiber, or 4%, so we know that that's considered a little bit.
and the product on the right-hand side has 4 grams of fiber, which is 16% of our daily value, and we know that greater than 15% is considered a lot. In terms of sugar content, the product on the left has 1 gram less sugar than the product on the right. Overall, the better product here would be the product on the right, and this is because of the fiber content. All other aspects of these products are pretty much the same. When choosing cereal, follow the same guidelines that you do for whole grains, that being high fiber and low added sugar. Choose cereals that say whole grains in the ingredients list, such as Steel Cut Oats, Red River, and some cold cereal brands. Cereal that we want to choose left often are those that have very little fiber in them and have very large amounts of added sugars. Let's take a look at these two cereal brands. The two major things to look at here are going to be the sugar and the fiber. On the left, the product contains 4 grams of added sugar versus the right where it contains 11 grams of sugar. In terms of fiber, the product on the left has 5 grams, which is about 20% of your daily value, and the product on the right has 0.5 grams, only 3% of your daily value, which would be considered a little. And the serving size on the left-hand side is even a quarter cup larger than the serving size on the right-hand side. So overall, the better product here would be on the left-hand side, which is Bran Flakes. Now let's take a look at the deli and meat section. Animal proteins to choose more often are going to be poultry such as chicken and turkey, fish and seafood, and vegetarian alternatives such as nut and seed butters, beans and legumes, tofu, hummus, and other soy products. Products to choose less often include deli meats, processed meats like bacon, sausage, hot dogs, higher fat red meats, organ meats, poultry skin, and deep fried fish. Let's compare two options for sandwiches. The sandwich on the left contains 18 grams of fat with 7 grams of saturated fat at about 28% of your daily value, which is considered definitely a lot. The option on the right has 0 grams of total fat and 0 grams of saturated fat. The option on the left has 1,020 milligrams, a whopping 42% of your daily value of sodium, versus only 140 milligrams of sodium on the right, or 6%. Overall, it is pretty clear that the option on the right would be the option to choose, and that would be the flaked white tuna canned versus salami deli meat. Let's move into the dairy department. Ideally, when choosing dairy products, we want to choose the lower saturated fat and lower added sugar products. Milk, evaporated milk, yogurt, cottage cheese, and kefir with 1% milk fat or less is what we're aiming for. In addition, choosing plain flavors will have a lot less added sugar than flavors such as fruit on the bottom or even vanilla. You can then control the amount of sugar that you add to your yogurt if you prefer a little bit more sweetness than a plain flavor will give you by adding a little bit of honey, fresh fruit, or granola to your yogurt. When purchasing cheese, we want to stick to cheese products that have less than 20% milk fat in them. The percent milk fat is a value that will be on the front of package, usually at the top right corner. When choosing plant-based beverages such as almond milk, soy milk, rice milk, or oat milk, it is always best to choose the unsweetened kind. Let's talk about canned goods. The biggest nutrient to look at with canned goods is sodium. When available, choose the no added salt canned goods or the salt reduced versions of your favorite products. It can also be helpful to rinse your canned goods before using them to further reduce the salt content. This slide compares two different chicken broths from the same manufacturer, one being the original chicken broth and the other being a no salt added version. When we take a look at the sodium on the left-hand side, it has a whopping 570 milligrams of sodium at about 24% of your daily value versus just 40 milligrams of sodium at only 2% of your daily value in the no salt added kind. Again, when choosing grain products, it is always best to choose those that are whole grains. Examples include whole wheat pasta, brown rice, wild rice, bulgur, and other ancient grains such as quinoa, barley, millet, spelt, and farro. It is also in your best interest to reduce your intake of pre-packaged rice and pasta or potato dishes such as stovetop stuffing or pasta sidekicks. These have a lot of added salt and seasonings that you can't control. Using the same method, let's take a look at the difference between whole wheat pasta and pre-packaged Alfredo pasta. First, the fat content on the left is going to be much lower than on the right at 1.5 grams versus 3.5 grams. Same with cholesterol. On the left, there's 0 milligrams of cholesterol versus 10. Sodium again has 0 on the left versus 660 on the right at about 28% of your daily value. And then fiber. So on the left-hand side, 7 grams of fiber, 28% daily value, which is a lot, versus only 2 grams of fiber. So this is another no-brainer. The whole wheat pasta is going to be a better choice for you. The next category is snack foods. Nuts and seeds make great healthy snacks. Although they do contain fat, most of its fat comes from unsaturated fat, so it's not a concern. Dried fruit can also be a great addition to your nuts and seeds when eaten in moderation. Crackers made with whole grains that are unsalted are also a great addition to a dip like hummus or an olive tapenade. Let's compare these two nut-containing snack foods. On the left-hand side, we have walnut halves, and on the right-hand side, fruit and nut granola bars. As you can see, the walnut halves have 19 grams of fat and 1.5 grams of saturated fat for a 29% daily value versus the granola bar that only has 4 grams of fat with 6% daily value. Since the total fat is 19 grams and the saturated fat is 1.5 grams, we know that the majority of fat in this product is coming from unsaturated, healthy fats that we do want to include in our diet. Another nutrient to consider here is sugar. Walnut halves contain 0 grams of sugar versus a granola bar that has 7 grams of sugar. When we take a look at the ingredients list of the granola bar, we can see that the majority, if not all, of the sugar in this bar is added sugar. Therefore, if we had to choose between the two, the walnut halves would be a better choice. The last category on our grocery store tour is beverages. Ideally, we want water to be the drink of choice. This can come in the form of flat water or carbonated water. We can also have water in the form of tea, herbal tea, unsweetened iced tea, or coffee. Beverages to choose least often are ones that contain a high amount of added sugars. This is going to be juices, sports beverages, vitamin waters, energy drinks, and of course, regular soda pop and sweetened fruit juices and teas. In the past, you may have noticed special front of package labels or symbols that appear to be healthier products. Examples include Smart Spot by PepsiCo and President's Choice Blue Menu. It is important to always check the nutrition facts table because these labels are often used as marketing tactics by companies and does not necessarily mean that the product is healthy for you. Nutrient content claims are statements found at the front of packages that tell you about one nutrient, such as sodium, fat, cholesterol, fiber, or sugar in that product. Manufacturers must follow very strict guidelines put out by Health Canada in order to put a content claim on the front of pack. For example, in order to say that a product is a high source of dietary fiber, it must contain more than 4 grams of fiber per serving. Similarly, if you are stating that a product is low in sodium, it must have less than or equal to 140 milligrams of sodium per serving. If a company is saying that a product is fat-free, it must have less than 0.5 grams of fat per serving. These nutrient content claims can be trusted because they must go through an approval process in order to be put on the front of pack. In summary, when you're grocery shopping, remember to read the nutrition facts table and the ingredients list using the strategies that we developed in this class. Ideally, choose foods more often that are lower in saturated fat, trans fat, sodium, and added sugar. In terms of grain products, choose those that are higher in fiber more often. In general, include vegetables, fruit, unsalted nuts, whole grain products, fish, and healthy vegetable oils as much as possible in your diet in order to reduce heart disease risk. Thanks for listening, and I hope this is helpful for you today.